Hello, welcome to your daily dose of truth to hear. I'm Melanie Keenan, and today's program is Truth Talk with Bill and Brandy. Well, we haven't talked much about politics since the election. However, I've recently been reminded that to be silent is to be in agreement. So there's not much we can do if a political party of anyone, whether it's Republican or Democratic, are taking reins and taking steps and measures that we might not agree with. But what we can do is speak up about it. We can make sure that everyone around us is educated and knowledgeable about what is going on so that when we're faced with circumstances, we're not shocked, we're not surprised, we are prayed up, and we already know how to respond. Before Brandy joins me today, I want you to don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Let's make sure that everyone that wants to know can have a chance to do just that. So, Brandy, welcome to our program. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
And everyone, just so you know, just to remind you how you can get in touch with Brandy, she is on the right track, a publisher and author, and she's on Facebook at On the Right Track with, which is W, Brandy Hunt, and you see that on the screen. Brandy, I have to say, I've been on your Facebook. I was trolling you yesterday, I guess is the right way to say it. And you have some amazing books coming out, publishers doing their signing events, even amidst all of this COVID. You have just powered through to be able to get authors, that have never published anything. And I kept seeing under the comments, thank you, Brandy. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for all your understanding. And I just want to say it is amazing what you're doing for people who have a story inside and you're somehow able to teach them, to guide them into publishing, like legitimate publishing books. I just had to give you that attaboy. And if anyone here wants to write a book, if you're listening, please, by all means, here's her information again. Reach out to Brandy because she can take you from a desire to write a book, a thought, into an actual published book. So thank you, Brandy, for what you do for
I
everybody.
appreciate that.
It's amazing. I was just like, I was tearing up yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh, look at all these authors and these people. And the little boy that was on the cover with his dad. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, that boy when you said, well, he said he wants to be an author when he grows up. He wants to write a book because he saw the process. Like that's the next generation. And that's what we should be doing. We should be passing along something that people can do for themselves, you know?
yeah,
Something that will take the next generation and say, I want to be like them. Because it used to be businesses. If your dad did a business, you kind of went into the business and you did the business. And it was a passed down legacy. And we don't do that anymore. Children are like, I don't want to work that hard. I'd rather be on social media and be Instagram, person. We don't do that. But you did that for that little boy yesterday. And well, I guess over the few months, right? Um,
it took us about 4 months.
4 months. It's just amazing. I just thought that's wonderful.
Thank
Um,
you.
so today we got so much to talk about. It's kind of like alphabet soup here today. Like, what are we going to talk about? Everything. We're going to keep talking until time runs out, and then catch up next week as well. But the first thing I want to do, last week we talked about the African American representative in Georgia and how she was arrested for, quote, knocking on the door while a bill was being signed, unquote. Um, so we're not going to go into that part again, but it kind of made me curious. What is this bill about? What was so important for her to want to take that measure? Like she's not just up there starting trouble. There was people with her that said this bill is important for us to see, to put our eyes on, and to see you sign it. And I just wanted to follow up with that. So what's in this bill? Do you know anything about this bill?
I didn't. There was more ruckus about the knock than the actual bill itself. So I'll be listening to what was actually in the bill with everybody else. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, well, it's Bill SB 202. That's the name of the bill, and it's a voting bill. Okay, so it changes a lot of aspects of the voting bill. Um, there's been a lot of people that want to cancel Georgia. All right, there they want to can. That's Governor Brian Kemp on the well. You hopefully you know which one that is. He's the
Mhm.
man. But they want to cancel Georgia, and what does that mean? It means people are asking Martin Luther King's daughter or granddaughter, one of them. I'm sorry for not knowing exactly which one. Um, is online for boycotting, and they want the Major League Baseball, they want the Masters to boycott Georgia. They want businesses to boycott Georgia. Now, that's not going to hurt Brian Kemp. It's not going to hurt the government. That's going to go back and hurt more people that are just now opening up their businesses, just now getting relief from COVID, and they're calling for boycott. That's going to hurt the very people they're trying to stick up for.
Right.
Does that make any sense to boycott the whole state of Georgia?
No, I think it's people throwing temper tantrums because they're not getting their way, and they're throwing the cancel culture at everything. Well, just can't you can't cancel a state first of all. You know, people and I often think, do people really understand who's running these businesses that you're saying, don't go to the state of Georgia and boycott them from the masters? And that could be restaurants, that could be gas stations, that can be, nail salons, just the economics of the state to me is what would matter. If it's not racist, it's not I don't understand why they just want to totally eliminate a whole state from the economics because of one person.
Yeah, it's a bill that he signed alone. I mean, that was the whole debate last week was he was signing it alone. You're talking about the janitorial staff that cleans these places that are hired to work these events. Like they're needing that money more than ever. So
Right.
boycott the politicians,
Right.
boycott Congress. Don't support those things that they're involved in, but don't boycott what affects American citizens at the core level. I think it's irresponsible to do that, to fight it in that manner. But where do they get that from? Here. They get it from President Biden. Um, he said he went along with this. He called it a new Jim Crow era. He said it was be more like Jim Eagle was his exact verbiage. An eagle is bigger than a crow, so he's saying this is bigger than Jim Crow. And civil rights leaders agree with him, and they want reform. Now, this is what I want to read. Jim Crow law, if for those of you who need a refresher course like I did, all right, it had laws that enforced racial segregation in the southern United States. They were enacted late 19th century and early 20th century by white Southern Democratic nominated state legislators to disenfranchise and remove political and economic gains made by Black people. So, Jim Crow laws, let me take this off the screen. Jim Crow's laws was laws preventing African Americans from being part of the political and economic process, right? To put it short. I'm going to read you what this vote does. I don't see racism. Everybody's talking about racism, but to me, if you're saying it's going to affect Black people, then you're telling me Black people can't follow rules. You're telling me that you don't believe, well, I guess I should say African American people can't go along with any kind of um, program, discipline. Like to go to the voting box between hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. and then on weekends. You're telling me they can't follow that. How is that disenfranchising Black voters? I'm not understanding, Brandy. Here's what it says. I'm going to read you just a couple things. It makes it easier to vote and hard to cheat. That's what they said. Um, so it used to be when you voted, especially with an absentee ballot, this year in 2020, it was a mess. People didn't have to do ID. So it took multiple people to look at the signature and verify the signature on the ballot with multiple documents in the federal system. Okay, so if I did a mail-in ballot, 4 or 5 people would have to find documents online or in the government system and say, "Yup, that signature matches." It took time, that took energy, it took staff. So now they're saying, "I want you to replace it with an ID. You have to show a copy of your driver's license, state ID, vice versa,
On a mail-in ballot.
on a mail-in ballot or absentee ballot or in person. No matter how you vote, you need to have an ID." Okay. Now you're telling me black people can't get IDs?
Right.
I'm not understanding how that's racist. They're saying it's limiting the ability for black people to get IDs.
I
I
I would
don't understand
for
that.
the Hispanic community because they're the ones that don't get to get their ID when they get here.
That's
We can have an ID, so I don't understand how that's racist against us. So the whole law is from now on,
no,
everybody has
not
to provide an
that's
ID.
part of the law.
Oh,
That's just one part. Okay. So then the other part is they can no longer, the state and local governments can no longer be allowed to send unsolicited application to third party people. So they don't send it directly to you. They can send it to an organization, and then the organization send it to those people who they want to vote. It has to go directly from the state to the person. So that cut out the third party special interest groups from getting their hands on the ballots. Again, how is anybody's race associated with that?
right.
To me, and they said this is because of the 2020 election, how everybody had problems with the ballots. Were they legal? Were they not legal? So they're going to take out the special interest groups and say the ballots have to go straight to the individuals. I think that's a good idea. What do you think?
Sounds like a good idea, but I think we're still missing the mark by not using our current digital system to do the whole thing. Why are we still using paper, anything, in this world where everything is literally digital? I can put my thumbprint somewhere, I can put my face print somewhere, I can be identified in so many other technology ways, but we're going back to voting booths and ballots still. That just part just confused me. But to answer your question, that doesn't sound racist to me. It just sounds like they're trying to fine tune and not allow anybody to cheat the system. But the system is need to be thrown away to altogether because it's old and it's outdated.
Okay, so based on what you just said, I find it hilarious. They want to signature match off of electronic data that's on you, but they can't let you vote electronically.
Correct.
See, so you make it sound so silly. Like, wait a minute, if you want to signature match me by finding all my documents I've ever signed on the government, sites, but you can't use those sites to just let me go ahead and vote. Yeah, it doesn't, it's behind time.
The elderly, community not being up to date with technology. However, even in that case, could they not still drive their car up, put their thumbprint in because we're all known by our thumbprint somewhere?
Yeah.
You know, uh, our face print. It just seems like they're having these big meetings and making these new rules that don't progress with the rest of. We've been to the moon for God's sakes. Can we not figure this out right here on Earth? We've been up there a couple of times now. I believe we can even eat it by now. So I just don't understand why all of these big meetings are still happening, all these big brains, and we got cars that drive themselves, but we cannot figure out a voting system that works for us all to be inclusive without fighting over it.
I don't know. But I think that they're not going to listen to that because it would mean that there really isn't a way to circumvent the system if you do it that way.
Right.
And unfortunately, I do think that there's people and groups on both sides of the aisle that's trying to circumvent accountability. Here's the other point. They're saying that under the Jim Crow accusation, they're saying that hold on, I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to read what the bill says. They're saying that okay, President Joe Biden criticized efforts in Republican-led state legislature, including Georgia's, to pass election bills making access to ballot boxes more difficult. Okay, so he's complained this is going to make it more difficult. All right, let me tell you what it says about the ballot boxes. Here's from the bill. Securing absentee ballot drop boxes, which did not exist a year ago, are now officially part of state law. The law now requires all 159 counties to have at least one drop box, okay, per 100,000 voters. So they're making sure the drop boxes are out there for 100,000 voters, one for every early voting site. All right. It says, though, they move the drop boxes inside the voting site. They do it for the early voting. All right. Instead of outside on the government property. So people now have to walk into the building to do their voting instead of just drive up, drop it in. But it says drop boxes will only be accessible during early voting days and hours instead of 24/7. So here's the days and hours, okay? 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. They also now have Sunday hours, Saturday and Sunday mandatory hours as well. So you're telling me that African Americans can't get to a voting box because it's in a building that is open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Why not?
But Latinos, Caucasians, Chinese, Asians, they can get to the voting boxes, but African Americans just don't know how to do that. Why is the African American community on board with this? Because to me, it's another way that President Biden is saying Africans are stupid. African Americans, not Africans. African Americans, black people. Not everybody that's black came from Africa. I don't believe that. But anyway, that's another debate. How? How is the bandwagon to completely cancel Georgia, to boycott based on these examples? I don't see it. I just don't see it. Um, Let me see if there's anything else we're talking about. There really isn't any. Oh, they want to finish tabulating the votes before 5 o'clock voting day. So instead of waiting until voting is over, like they have been doing, and then counting, and then they say, "Hey, guess what? This person won," and then they recount, and they're like, "Oh, we were wrong," and having the problem that we've had this past election. They said they're going to tabulate every day. They're going to let it be known to the public how many people voted, and then here's a tabulation of those votes as it goes. So there's no surprise at the final result. They have a problem with that.
Ooh.
It says that this law, President Biden said this: Republicans in the state instead rushed through an un American law to deny people the right to vote. Biden said Friday, this law, like so many others being pursued by Republicans across the country, is a blatant attack on the Constitution. Requiring, and it goes on, the Georgia law would, among other things, require a photo ID, cut the period to requested absentee ballots, and place limits on where ballot drop boxes are. How is that unconstitutional?
The only thing I do disagree with is the hours, and that's because most people aren't taking off to go vote. So if you are cutting it off at 5 o'clock, but open it on the weekend, so I guess that did compensate for people who may work till 6 or 7 o'clock, unable to vote on voting day. being able to do an absentee ballot on the other days that they will be in operation.
Right. Yeah, that's why they said, we're going to limit the hours, but you have weekends. So
And that's
everyone has at least one day off,
right.
so they can vote on their day off.
I don't see a problem with it.
I have gone through this and gone through this, and I don't understand how this is a voter suppression bill. I cannot see it. If someone is listening to this, please contact me. Let me know how this is a voter suppression bill. How
It's
this is warranting of boycotting.
I just, sometimes think, is that what they call the bill, a voter suppression bill?
That's what President Biden called the bill.
You
Take
know,
it
I
from here.
think that they incite certain things on purpose. Because if just like you said, we searching the whole bill to figure out how is this inciting, instead of looking at the positives. They could have called it anything else, but they chose something negative so that that's what we would put our eyes on. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I agree with that. They we don't even care to read it. No one's caring to read this that I talked to. They're just taking it verbatim, especially since the president compared it to Jim Crow. But I'm going to tell you what, I take Jim Crow very seriously. I know people in my family, in my husband's family, that fought for civil rights. My pastor of my church was there marching beside Martin Luther King. This was something that, yeah, he's an amazing. Oh my goodness. But this is something people died for. This is something people really fought and gave up and sacrificed for. And for you to just lightly call this bill bigger than Jim Crow, I don't see anywhere where this is a bill that says African American, Black people, you can't vote. You don't have access. You don't have a voice. I don't see it. And I don't know why people aren't reading it, finding out. But that's why we're doing this show, right? Because we got to educate people. We can't allow people to be continuing to just hear something and say, oh, that sounds right. Oh, that sounds wrong. Now, let me say this, there was no reason for that representative to be arrested.
Right.
That was as equally unjust as the persecution of Governor Kemp over this bill, of the state of Georgia over this bill. I just had to talk about it because I don't understand it. I wish somebody would tell me how this makes sense. I just
So
really
she's
want somebody to tell me.
knocking uncontrollably for that bill to not be signed.
What?
So when she was doing all that knocking uncontrollably, trying to
Yes.
stop the bill from being signed, were we already aware of what was in the bill, or she just knew a bill was being signed and she was asking to be present and so that she would know? Or was she aware? Were we already aware? Had this already been rolled out at the time she was knocking?
I believe everywhere there was a lot that was out there about this bill. The ballot box changes was about this bill. They said that it was illegal to pass water to the African American people. Now, when they stood in long lines, that was one issue. Um, that's not in the bill. However, what is in the bill, because you're right, long lines are hard on people. But can white people and Latino and Asian people can afford to bring a water bottle on their own, but African Americans need people to bring them water. Again, how is that racist? I think it's racist to say that African Americans can't be responsible to say, I want to be in a long line. Let me grab my water bottle and go
Right.
stand in line.
And
It's
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 November, so
and
it's
it's November. It's not hot. You're right. But this is what they did. They did address that in the bill, and they did say that they said if I forget exactly, let me see, but it had to do with if there's a certain amount of people waiting over 30 minutes, then you must bring in extra staff to minimize the lines. So you have to hire people, which is going to create jobs. You got to have more staff. So it's per certain amount of people, then you have to bring in more staff so the lines are not long.
okay. That
Okay.
sounds fair.
So no one needs to stand in line. Right here it is. It says another change that was proposed, which is now law, requires polling places with long lines to take action if wait times surpass an hour at any time during the day. These massive polls with more than 2,000 voters and wait time longer than an hour would have to hire more staff, add more workers, or split up the precinct so that they go to a lower staffed precinct, a lower line precinct. That took care of it.
Yeah.
There's nowhere, the president isn't saying anything about that. They're still saying Africans are being refused water. Come on. Come on. You want to know who's being refused water? Go to Kenya. Go to actual Africa and tell them they're refusing water because that's where they need water. Go to the third world countries of any third world country and cry about being refused water because it's not even a thing in America. It's just not a thing in America. I'm past the point on that, Brandy. Before we segue to the next topic, which is even more disturbing, I just want the African American community to stand up and say, we're not ignorant and stupid and lazy. We don't need you to feed us a ballot box that we can drive up. We're capable of getting out of our car. Why are they being singled out? Why are they the crutch?
Because I think somewhere people are trying to find a loophole of, okay, we did African Americans wrong for so many years, so let's make them look like we're pacifying them by saying, here, we'll bring the water to you, here, we'll make you a special room just for you. But it sounds to me that that's not what's happening. That's what it's supposed to sound like. It's supposed to sound like I'm edifying you by giving you seclusion, but what you're really doing is secluding me so that we'll be outcast.
Yeah. I don't have anything to pull up on the screen on this because I wasn't going to talk about this, but you brought it up. They're trying so hard to make reparations that
Reparation. That's it.
reparations that this organization, it's a private company, is giving out $500 per month to any family of color if they make under $5,900 a month. Let me say this. Can I make a organization and say I'm going to give only white people $500 a month as long as they make under $5,900? Why can't white people be included in that? What is this cancel white people? You can't cancel white people. Like, I know that, yes, there's been wrong government and it's led by white people, and there's been some bad cops that are white people, and there's, oh my gosh, there's bad cops that are every color people. There are colored people and minority people of every color in politics as well. Like, it's not, how can we sit by and let it be praised that everybody but whites are going to get a handout to help them off? I'm going to tell you what. I grew up in a white wealthy home in a white wealthy suburb on Long Island, New York. I then grew up halfway through my years at 13 in a very impoverished black community that was across a railroad track from a white community. And you didn't cross that railroad track. Blacks were on one side and we were poor as dirt, and whites were on the other side, and they were as wealthy as they wanted to be. But I also know in my years growing up in like North Carolina and in South Carolina and Georgia, there are poor white people just like there's poor black people.
Yep.
And to say in a community, anyone who is under $5,900 a month, you can get a $500 a month increase, free money, but you just can't be white. We're going crazy over a bill that doesn't segregate, but saying it's racism when racism is staring us in the face in this company, and no one cares because it's white people that's left out. I'm just so outraged over that, that it's just insane. It's Brandy.
Well, so there's a couple of narratives that I think are unspoken, and one of them, well, this one is spoken. I hear it a lot. Not anything that I would ever say, because I love all people. In honor of Bill, we love everybody. So I do hear a lot of people say white people are privileged. There's white privilege. There is no black privilege. So that extra $500, a white person can walk in a bank and automatically get approved. Where me, I might have to go through all the things and all the companies, and they still come back and say you're denied, even though me and the missus who was beside me was white, had the same rap sheet, but she walked out with her $500 and I did not. Now that's history. So I believe that the unspoken narrative is we're going to cover the people of color because they don't have the white empowerment and they're disenfranchised. And again, this is the backstory of our life. Why don't we just stop the narrative of only white people are empowered and only white people are privileged and white privilege? Why don't we just stop that narrative and put people in position who are who are just and fair and things like that in all companies? Of course, we know that's going to take some centuries, but we put band-aids on stuff so much, and I think that company probably did that and say, you know what, I can't change America, but what I can do is I'll cover the people of color and it'll make me look good because who loves the black people, the Hispanic people, the Latino community. I'll take the people of color and then I'll also look empowered because I took the ones nobody wants.
I could agree with everything you just said on a certain level. This is what I can agree with. If I or you are up against a white person, same credentials, there is a 90% chance I won't get it over the white person. That's just it. And I'm going to tell you what, a lot of white people are like, you're crazy. I had a very heated conversation with someone that was white, and it came down to you've never experienced it, so you don't know it. Try to say there's no racism. That I when I go into a store and they say, you know, I don't think you can afford this place.
Right.
There's a place down the street that might be more your liking. I was told that never happens. That doesn't happen to you. That can't happen to you. But it does. It happens every time, almost every time. Go into a new store. It won't happen at Walmart. Won't happen at Target. But you
It
go
happened.
to a boutique, and it's going to happen every time.
That happened
Um,
today.
oh,
She
see,
went to go buy something. I had it in my hand, and she said they got a cheaper version down the street. And I said, "What makes you think that I need the cheaper version?" And she kind of drew back, and I said, "I'll take this one."
yeah, it is a thing. It's real, and you know, it might not even come from a place of hate. It might come from a place of pity. You know, because they believe the narrative. They
Right.
believe the narrative, so they're like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want her to spend all her money on this. There's a place you can go down the street." And it could be a place of love and compassion, but it's ignorance.
It
However, this is the
right.
point I'm saying. If that white person is dirt poor, filthy because there's no bath, they don't have water on, they don't have the clothes, they're equally disenfranchised as a black person in that same place. See, once you get below a certain level in society, by what society deems as low, there it's an even playing field, white and black,
It is.
Chinese, Asian. I don't know why I keep saying Chinese and Asian. Chinese or Asian. Please don't get offended. Um, Latino. Once you're at the low poverty level, when you don't have your lights on and you're $5,900 a month for a family, come on, come on. I don't know. I don't know. So they're all at the same playing field at that level, aren't they? And they're all going to have the same problems. So I don't see that you can say they're I think they're equally disenfranchised at that point.
That's what
You
we
know?
think. But I heard a person, a Caucasian person, say that A white man should not be homeless because he has so many strings he could pull. He would have to be choosing to be homeless and to because his white empowerment and his white privilege, he should have used it. It's like a token of some sort. You should.
I think that's just ignorance.
That's what. And I was thinking,
That kind of hurts my feelings
it
because
happens. I
you
was
know
the homeless man at the time when this other person said that to me. He was like, "You shouldn't have to do that because he should be able to get it himself." Well, I understand that, but right now this man is hungry. I don't think he feels like he has any kind of privilege at all, let
no,
alone a white privilege. But
that's just not true.
the
That is
world,
just not it's not true at all because you literally. All right, I okay. I was homeless for 2 years of my life. Okay, it's not a choice for some people. It's not a choice. I was also, we minister at Truth to Hear to the homeless community, and those people aren't there by choice. I will tell you. Let me just think about this first. Yeah, 99% of the people that we minister to are Caucasian. They are Caucasian, and their stories is not their own stories. They're not psychotic. They're not delusional. They're not drug addicts. They have been hit by difficult times, and most of it by other people's doings, the ones that I encounter these days. So I think we just need to stop the narrative and say, listen, people are people. Doesn't matter what color you are. If you need a handout to feed your family, you should be able to go to who's giving the handout and say, hey, can I come? It should not be based on race. It should not be based on any color of anybody's skin. And I think when we started talking about, hey, what race are you when you fill out the forms, that's when it all started to segregate us.
that's
Why do I have to tell you what race I am? Why do
right.
you need to know that I'm mixed or I'm African American or I'm Asian? Why do you need to know what race I am? I'm a human being. Period. Anyway, we're gonna go on to some more. Can you hear that? My gardener's here. All right, hold on one second. Perfect timing. Let's transition. We don't have a lot of long time, but I want to transition to something equally burdensome. Can you hear that loudly?
Yeah.
You want to talk about something? I'll mute myself.
Okay.
Are you talking, Brandy? Oh, I thought you were going to take over and talk while he does the blowing.
I figured you were gonna edit it out anyway. Equally burdensome is where you stop.
Okay, he's going in the other direction. I apologize for that hiccup of noise. So here's the thing. It's another point of our society that is segregating and causing a division and a battle between one and another. And that is education, educating our students. So I don't know if you've heard about this, Brandy, but here's our vice president as she is talking about San Diego offering in-person classes to migrants. Now, I guess they're not illegal migrants because they're being bussed in. So does that make them just migrants, even though they came over illegally? I don't know why they're not talking about illegal migrants anymore. They're just migrants. But she was laughing. Vice President Harris was actually laughing about American parents having to deal with educating their kids at home. And she was saying, I bet they appreciate teachers now. I bet they don't think teachers get paid enough now, and laughing. While she introduced the fact that migrant children are going to have in-person classroom teaching. But guess what? American students are what, one day a week maybe? or haven't even started in-person classes. So here's another headline. San Diego teachers are given option to replace regular schedule to teach migrant children in person.
What's
Um,
behind that?
no, that's not it. What?
What's the reasoning behind the migrant children being taught in person? Is it because they have no home to go to yet? They don't have
Okay.
birth.
Well, this is the thing. It says here, San Diego teachers have been given the option to replace their work shifts at their current school to teach migrant children being housed at the San Diego Convention Center. So they're not asked to do it in addition to teaching their students. They're saying, hey, instead of doing online education, because San Diego isn't open yet, come and go to the convention center and teach in-person classes. It's a volunteer job. Now, how can it be volunteer? Because they are still being paid with taxpayers' money to teach the students of San Diego. But instead of teaching the students, they're now going to transfer out of that job and go into teaching the migrants. So not only are the children of San Diego not been educated in person for a year, the tax dollar that pays the teachers' salaries are still being paid for the teachers to volunteer to teach the migrants in the convention center. There are 700 unaccompanied minor migrants being housed there. So they're
Wow.
not getting any education at all. And I'm going to be hated for this. I know I'm going to be hated for what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to let you have it. One, the parents of these migrant children that sent them unaccompanied to possibly be trafficked, to possibly be sexually assaulted on their way here, to have the cartel be paid maybe up to $6,000 to have them here. They weren't educated the whole time. Now, I'm not against children. God knows children need to be educated. They need to be loved. They need to be sheltered, clothed, fed. They need counseling. But how are you choosing to uneducate our government's children in an effective way? And you're taking you're not adding teachers. You're taking the teachers away from the students that are paying their bills, that have been waiting for a year, and you're saying, don't teach them, come over and teach these kids. I don't care what kids they are. It's wrong in my eyes to do that. Now, the kids didn't choose to come on their own, their parents had to send them. But they're here, and we do need to take care of them. But I don't think, what if the teachers did it after school hours? Volunteer after school hours. Volunteer on weekends to teach the immigrant children. Why are we taking them from the school? Go ahead, Brandy. What's
It's
your
because
thoughts?
messier and messier every day. I just want to say that. It just seems like we get more and more messier every single day. So I just want to make sure I got the story right. I told Naya to go to California because California is a better. Naya's my daughter for everyone watching. Naya, go to California. I'm in South Carolina, by the way. Um, Cross over the border, go all the way to go all the way to California, because you're going to get an education and be able to have a better life over there. Is that what you're telling me? These kids were sent by their parents, no adult supervision. So if I was to do that, which I would never, but
You
I
would be up for DSS.
correct. But to tell my child there's a better life somewhere else for you, but to expect another adult to pick up my slack, I just don't understand that term. And I don't understand that. Like telling her to go away from me and go learn and be somewhere else, and then let another state or country, actually, I guess we cross the border, to let someone else be responsible for the education of these children. I probably would have took the teachers who are already teaching. I would have tried to get, because why we're not in a why are we in a hurry to teach them? They just got over here. So it's a lot they're going to have to learn. They're probably going to have to learn English. Then they got to learn standard math. There's a bunch of stuff they're going to have to learn. So for me, I would have taken maybe new teachers or teachers that do want to volunteer. What's the little the teacher that comes in to help the teacher, the teacher's aide?
The teacher's aides.
Grades. Even I had a cousin during her college years. She went over to Japan to teach English. English wasn't even her subject, but because we know our native language, right? So she went over to Japan to teach English. So something as simple as that, they don't even have to be teachers because these are
Right.
migrant students. So all legality just went out the window. We just need somebody to sit with these kids for 4 hours, 3 hours, however long they're going to call school. Because right now, school ain't it's not normal. So it's not like our school used to be what 7 hours.
Right.
At this point, we just need the children to learn something every day. Maybe not even every day. Maybe 3 days a week. So for me to take migrant children and try to put them in our systems that are already running these systems that we've been running for years and years, they again band-aid. It's like it's like, here, just do this thing, and guess what, probably a month from now they're going to say, oh, we shouldn't have done that. That's a mess.
I think, Brandy, it's more than just a band-aid. I think it's an insult. It is an insult to
It is.
those in our country. And I don't know what they're trying to cause an uprising of. I don't know what they're trying to do, but you can't keep poking the bear at American citizens. You can't keep poking us like this and think we're just going to keep saying, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. The other part of this problem is this: the immigrants that have been coming over are highly 30% or more, depending on what you listen to, are COVID positive. So here's one parent saying, we now have parents nervous to send their kids to school when it opens because they're afraid their teacher is volunteering to teach the in person migrant kids and is being exposed to COVID. So you can't let your kids go to school because COVID is a real disease, but they can go into a convention center full of kids that 30% are COVID positive, and they can go in there and teach and then come back. And now, when schools open in San Diego, I think May 14th, somewhere like that, April 14th, they're going to be able to just what? Walk into the classroom with those kids? Like there's so many, like, I'm not understanding. I don't understand any of this. This world is bat backwards. It's bat backwards. You have 130,000 kids in San Diego that have not had in-person instruction in a year. But you're taking the teachers from the 130 kids and you are putting them on to a 700 count kid
In person.
in person. In person. The tentative state, let me correct myself. The tentative start date for hybrid classes for San Diego is April 12th. Listen, what do the migrant kids need? I'm not there. I don't really know, but I can tell you what they need. They need to feel safe. They need volunteers to go there and talk to them like human beings,
Right.
to clothe, to get bathed, to get counseling. Why did my mom leave me? Why did I? Do you imagine the trek they just went through? And you want to teach them their ABCs and history when they need mental health? They
Right.
need to know that they now are Americans because I believe they're getting all citizenship. Okay. So you need to let them know you're safe. You're here. We got you. I'm sorry for what you went through on your journey, but we got you. Let's get you food and clothing, shelter, a decent bed, a decent blanket. Let's 700 kids. You can reach out and get 700 blankets donated around the world to these 700 kids instead of those horrendous, silver, you know, sheets of material. We can get them decent food. We can take care of these kids as children, but they're being used politically to aggravate American citizens, and I think it's despicable. I
Very.
just Brandy, I don't know. I'm just so frustrated with almost everything that's going on, and I just need to, if anybody else, we're gonna wind up. I can't go into the next phase of what I was going to say, so we'll save that um,
Okay.
for another day. I'm sure it's going to be around by next week. But what I do want to say is this: there's a lot of things that don't make sense. There's a lot of things that go against what we believe and what we know is right. Right is wrong and wrong is right these days. It is like the end times. It's like everything is just backwards and Satan has a heyday on this society and the world. And it's insane what's happening. But there is a peace, and that is Jesus. Why am I'm passionate about this? I want to make a difference in people's lives in the way I can, in my little bit of community, the way that God tells me to. But at the end of the day, I have peace about myself and the ones I love because Jesus is our answer. You know, we know that we belong, we're called by the name of God. He will direct us, He will order our steps, and will protect us and provide for us. So there is a comfort in that. But there's just so many people that don't have Jesus. They don't know that he's real. They think he's this mythic character or this angry God that hates everybody that sins. Well, I am a sinner and he loves me. He loves me. He adores me. And I worship him because he doesn't judge me. And if we could do anything, is to say, if you are anxious about what is going on around you, if you are anxious about life in general and scared about what next, let me tell you, Jesus is your Savior. He wants you to call upon His name, to confess that He is a Son of God, and He died for you, and that He rose again so that you can have, in this very moment, a peace that surpasses everything that you see around you. Brittany, I want to give you a final word, and then I want to talk about a way that we're making a change.
Well, that was a lot that we talked about. Our country has decided that certain people are disposable, certain cultures and nationalities and races. And so, but that's the government and that's the people. But Jesus will never call us disposable. He loves us with an everlasting love. And the best thing I can tell you to do is try to your best to serve in your capacity wherever you are with integrity. That's that don't matter what race you are, what color you are, or what your gender, preference, whatever it is, do it with truth and integrity, and you'll always come out on the winning side.
Randy, I love your dissertations. I just absolutely love it. And this is something we're doing with truth and integrity here at Truth to Hear. Um, and we talked about it. I'm going to talk about it on every show we ever do because it's so important to get the message out. God provoked us in conversation to start a ministry called Bridge the Gap. And what God has done is He has given us a house. Now you could go on at Truth to Hear on YouTube to see the tour of the house. Let me put that up here. It's just at Truth to Hear on YouTube or Facebook to see a tour of the house and what God has done. Um, Hold on. I'm not as quick as I should be with my fingers. But what Bridge the Gap is, it's going to be in that house that you just saw, a safe environment for women and children to go to transition from everything they've lost this year, whether they've lost their home due to COVID or they lost their home because someone died that was paying the bills and they didn't have anywhere else to go, or there's kids who can't get educated that are falling behind in their classes. We're going to have counselors. We're going to have rooms for people to stay to transition. We're going to have job opportunities. We're going to have the administrative resume work, phones that they can use to be able to be you know to be able to reach out to jobs. It's a center where people can come and heal, people can come and regain their life, and so I'm really excited about that. What we need, Brandy, you know what we need? Brandy
What's that?
says, "No, I don't know what we need.
What's that?
We need partners. We desperately need people to be a one-time donor or a monthly donor to keep the house open and to be able to get everything we need to start the program. We want to open it in May of this year, if not earlier. I would love April 15th if the funds are going to come in. We trust God to lay it on everybody's heart on what their part is. But if you are saying, where can I help? What can I do to help people that are being all tossed around? This is one way, help with Bridge the Gap Transition and Educational Center. You could PayPal at Truth to Hear is the tag, or paypal.me/truth to hear. You will get a tax deduction receipt sent to you so that you can count it on your taxes next year, because we are a nonprofit organization. Well, Brandy, what do you say?
That's awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. You look, that was a great picture. You look so happy to get the keys.
God did that in such a miraculous way, and
Quick.
I, I'm going to tell the whole story one of these days. Maybe on Monday, I'll tell the whole story of how we got the keys, and what God has done since we got the keys. But right now, it's an amazing thing, and I know God has the provision, and the supplies. But we are part of this, and we need, everybody should do their part. So we're thankful for that, Brandy. It's been a great hour with you again.
As always.
Bill joins us next week. We're going to be live for now on. We had to record for a couple of weeks, but we're going back to doing live programs every Tuesday at 2 p.m. starting next week. Brandy, thank you. Keep doing what you do with all those wonderful people writing their books. And for this week, I'm going to show up once we say goodbye, show you the schedule for this week of your daily dose with Truth to Hear. So you can know what program's coming on when and put your alarms for it. Brandy, we'll see you next week.
Bye. See you next week.